All right, cool. Members, welcome. Another Investmentor Podcast. Right? This time's a little bit different. Bit of ad hoc here. We have Sarah Braniff, our acquisition, one of our acquisition managers, on this podcast today. And I thought we'd like to talk about a little bit about what she does. But you know what? I think property in general, coming from her perspective, but also coming from a woman's perspective in this industry. Yeah, that's some interesting, I find it very interesting as well. So anyway, Sarah, welcome. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cool.
You meant to sit when you cheers.
I am. So, have you ever been on a podcast before?
Never. I have never been on a podcast ever.
Is it quite daunting? There's so much gadgets.
This is awesome. I love it. No,
Yeah.
I've never been on a podcast before.
No?
Never really been in front of a camera, except for when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I was in a movie.
In a movie?
Yeah, I was in a movie.
Do we know this movie?
It's called The Lost World.
The Lost World.
Probably not. Anyway,
Australian movie? Lost
I've
World.
got no idea. I was so little.
What was your role? I know it was one of the extras.
One of the extras, yeah, exactly. I was one of the extras, and I remember getting my hair and makeup done in a caravan, basically. It was like 2 a.m. in the morning, and all the lights went out, and it scared the crap out of me. I started crying.
Oh, really?
But, yeah, no, it was a long day, though. No, I just ran around as, like, an extra, basically, in, like what looks like probably a potato sack, like, rugged.
Well, you know what? From that to now a podcast. What, 20 years later?
20?
Yeah. It's come full circle.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, about 20
It's come
years.
full circle.
It has.
Yeah. But I think everyone would like to know, young lady, mid-20s,
I'm not mid-20s. I'm 30 next month.
Are you?
Yes.
You don't look it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I look 40.
But the property game itself and like getting into the actual business, getting into the jobs of property. How did you start?
Well, I was introduced quite young. My parents were actually builders. So what we used to do is they would buy land, build a house, and then sell it, make money that way. So I basically lived out of boxes. Growing up, we probably lived in about 20 different houses. This is back on the Gold Coast. So, yeah, introduced quite young. Loved, after school, heading to our house. The frame's gone up and we find our, which room's our room.
Hang on. So you when you said you build houses, so you actually move into them? So you would find land, build, move in. Find another piece of land, build, move in.
Yes. Yeah.
So you would just be moving around, building new houses and living in it.
Yeah.
What's the strategy behind that? Like, what was the reasoning? Like, it's just...
I think they just loved the aspect of a different project each time, building a different type of house, different type of plan, different location, and also obviously making money out of it as well. But I just remember one of the first houses I lived in was in Burleigh on the Gold Coast, and there was actually land there back then. Now, no chance of finding a block of land there at all, or even close to.
Yeah, well, I heard Gold Coast is probably going to run out of land in the next 10 years. Yeah. There's going to be no more land in Gold Coast.
Well, especially in the decent areas.
Yeah. It's just going to have to go further and further towards Brisbane.
Yeah. Brisbane, Logan, Beaudesert. Yeah, absolutely. So, so growing up, I guess, in property was, a big part of our lives, which I really enjoyed. I loved the moving into the new house smell, a house, the new house smell. And I guess it kind of felt like a little mini holiday each time, moving into a different house every time, meeting new neighbours, all that type of thing. But I guess I just knew how much money you can make in property, and I think that's what...
Well, how you said your parents would build it and then move. Mm-hmm. Did they also sell it and then move?
Yeah.
So
We'd live in it and then we'd sell it.
Yeah.
And then we'd move on to the next one. Sometimes we'd have to be in a rental in between.
Yep.
Depends on the time frames. But yeah, mainly.
Wow.
Yeah, mainly it was land first and then build.
So
they design it themselves as well.
How often did that happen in like a year or like a span of 5 years?
I'm just trying to,
or 10.
Just
an
remember how old
estimate.
I am. Maybe once a year.
Wow. For like what duration?
About 18 years. 18, 19 years.
So you would be moving once a year for nearly 18 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's the first time ever I've heard of someone doing that.
Really?
No.
Oh, special.
No, seriously. Like normally you would buy a home, or if you're going to do it that way, people would either keep it as an investment or rent it out. Like if you continuously build, but what you did was almost buy and sell every year and live in it.
Yep.
Have you asked your parents? Was there any like strategy behind that, or this just like an emotional?
I think
building
it might have
and
been
moving.
Emotional, but it's what they loved doing. Projects.
But did you have to sell?
What do you mean? Did we?
Like, did you have to sell? Like, when you build, did you sell and then move on? Like, was there strategy having to build it, sell it, then move?
I think I was a bit too young to understand the whole, financials behind it. But I think it was mainly just they would build and then they would look for their next project, sell, and then move into the next one. But as I said before, it would mainly be land and then we build. So in between were houses that we were renting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of kicked off the curiosity of property for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Definitely.
the building side and moving into these new homes. Is that why when I speak to you, always, we have different tastes in houses.
Yeah, we do.
Me and you, like the house that you would live in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you've obviously moved a lot more times than many people, 18 times.
18 times, yeah.
18 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually quite funny because in Sydney now I've been in Sydney for 8 years now. Actually, this weekend will be 8 years. And I've lived in the same apartment for 8 years. Yet growing up, I lived in up to 20 different houses. So it's a bit of a change. So
yeah, wow. Wow. So I guess straight after that you were after school and everything, was it straight into property?
So I actually became an event manager for a property company. It was a property and finance college.
Yeah.
So we held events, all over Australia and in Singapore, and so that was my kind of first taste of learning more about the financials and learning more about property and the strategies behind it. And I guess that's definitely what my first interaction with property as a job, basically. And then when I moved to Sydney, I worked for a bit of an aggregator. So we worked with builders and land developers, land agents, and that's where we put together opportunities for investors. So, I had a bit of experience then in working with, builders and developers, and then kind of, made the decision to stay within working with, property companies like us, property advisory firm, buyers agencies, to create those opportunities for investors.
Sure.
I love seeing the end results for investors and them go, getting very excited about, their properties and what they can afford and how much money they can make. So, I think dabbling in both, I did actually then work for a builder as well, doing a similar thing, land acquisitions and finding, the right house to fit on the block and the right location, stuff like that. So I think I've just, had a bit of a range of different, what's the word? Roles, yeah.
Yep.
Still mainly land acquisitions,
yep.
But just learnt a lot in different areas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've always kind of been sort of delved straight away into land acquisition. Yeah. Because traditionally, I know this is very general and traditional, is a lot of times when you kind of enter the property market, and some of you members who's watching is thinking about getting into property. So not just buying property or trying to invest, but they could be thinking about it as a career. What I've seen, and I'd like to know your experience on this, Sarah, is they start as agents or a sales associate. Then they become an agent or they become a property manager, and then they become a assistant to the sales, the main sales guy or salesperson.
Yep.
But it seems like you kind of jumped kind of straight into acquisition.
I did, yes. Yep.
Yeah? Wow. So can I ask, like, when was that? Like, how many years ago? Because if you're, how many years ago?
8 years ago.
So that's at early 20s going straight to land acquisition.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big jump.
It was. I guess I learnt from such amazing people. So that's why I've managed to, get to where I am now, was by just learning from so many just skilled professionals. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you, if people are listening to you out there and they say, I'm thinking about getting into property.
Yeah. As in buying or as a job?
They don't even know.
Okay.
I'm thinking like, as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, like a lot of them, I have a daughter is like a teenager and some of her friends are like 18, 19. And I've asked them, so what do you think about doing that? And they say, I'm thinking about maybe I might get into property, but they just think it's property. And one of the reasons they think about it is they watch shows like Lux Listings and they see all these ages and they're driving around in Ferraris and they're driving around in like Lamborghinis.
Very pretentious.
So, there's this like look about becoming an agent or becoming somewhere in property. But to me, land acquisition and understanding finding land, how it works, is vastly different to what people are used to, because if you told a young 21-year-old, hey, do you want to get into land acquisition, they wouldn't even probably know what you're talking about.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you think, having learned from that, you think a lot more especially young women, should be getting into this space, should be getting into land acquisition? Because, correct me if I'm wrong here, from the people I've dealt with in the past, in terms of acquisition and builders, it's predominantly
males, yes.
Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's a very male-orientated space, but it's really good to see women now coming into that space. You might be one of the very few young women that actually came in. Do you honestly recommend it to young women at 21 to go into the space, knowing that you're surrounded by a male-dominated sort of area? Because agents, traditional selling agents, there's it's very diversified. You have young women, women, men, everything. But in what your role is, it's mainly men.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mainly men. Yeah.
Like, what has been your experiences in that? You could be like totally upfront here because
no, that's fine. I think it's definitely got to do with your attitude and your confidence. I guess a lot of females might, not a lot, but some females might have trouble having a conversation with a male in such a high, a director of, a developer or something like that. Some women might have, what's the word? Be a bit of afraid to have a conversation with them.
Confidence?
Confidence, yeah. So I think it's more about building your confidence to have those type of conversations. And when those, males see that you have that confidence, that humbleness and that, that friendliness, they're, absolutely happy to have a conversation with you. So I think maybe women are, a bit lacking, I guess, the confidence to be around so many, males. But then, there are a lot of males in this industry that you don't want to have, don't have the time of day for, because they're just so, just not nice, nasty, egotistic, pretentious. And I think a lot of people in the property industry portray people in the property industry as egotistic and pretentious and just just,
Yeah.
I guess, nasty. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you would. I went with you to the awards show. You were nominated. What was the nomination for again? What was? Do you remember?
Rising star in the property industry. So
Yeah.
real estate business. So women in real estate awards, rising star. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good. Actually, a bit of eye opener for me when I went to those awards shows. Like, how many women are actually leading the way in like a lot of new tech startups in the property industry.
Yeah. Definitely. I think more and more women are actually joining the property industry, which is amazing to see. I'm actually seeing a lot of women as well joining the building industry. So working with, builders every day, I'm noticing a lot of women in top high roles, which is, fantastic to see.
Yeah. Well, it's always good to see young women like trying to move up and go into this type of space. But now here you are, all that 8 years experience in land acquisition. What do you think in land acquisition is the toughest part of the role? I know this might be a very broad answer, but
I'd probably say lack of stock.
Lack of land.
Lack of land. Yeah.
Lack of land.
Lack of
Interesting you say that, because I did a webinar. I don't know if you watched it, Sarah. I did a podcast with Bruce.
I watched all your podcasts.
I did one with Bruce, about inflation rates and interest rates, and just a key thing the key theme I wanted to mention to the viewers was, why is Australian house prices remaining unaffordable, and why I think it's going to remain unaffordable is, I always said it was just lack of supply, lack of properties, lack of land,
and also just because there is so many purchases out there after the one block of land, the one house. Obviously that's driving prices up as well, but yeah, definitely the lack of land. So any land developers out there, get developing. I need more land.
Well, the unfortunate thing is developers do want to develop. It's just councils, rezoning,
like
governments, a lot of red tape, bureaucracy, aren't allowing them to. And it takes them years just to get some sort of approval. So, so it's good you said that. Like, on the ground, you're on the phone all the time trying to find, and the biggest challenge for you is finding that land. Yeah. Finding
the land, and one of obviously my favorite things to do is building relationships. So building relationships with agents, with developers and builders, and trying to find those opportunities for our investors, or our members and owner occupiers and first home buyers. But just the lack of land. And I think also in different states you have different price points. So Victoria may be a lot less in price point, but New South Wales the prices are just so high in New South Wales, and trying to find the land and opportunities within our members, price points and what people can afford these days. So I think definitely land is very hard to come across, and affordable land. Yeah.
Do you find it difficult as well working here? In terms of when you do find land or you do find an opportunity, our criteria of trying to pass?
We do have a very strict criteria, I believe. We don't just, we can't just give our client, our members a piece of land just because it's available, or just because it might be affordable. We got to make sure, that they're in the right locations. There's value there. There's comparables there. There's low vacancy rates. So we do have quite a strict criteria to go through to put together those opportunities for our members.
The only reason I say that, Sarah, because firsthand, I know we work together very closely, and I've seen how much effort you put in terms of trying to find land, and how many land we do assess. only to
I
find
feel
out.
so sorry for our research team, the amount of suburbs and estates and everything
Yeah.
that they have to assess and to come back and be like, oh, no comparables, you know.
You can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's two of the biggest challenges.
Mm-hmm.
The criteria, but also in general, just lack of supply of land.
Yeah.
What interests me the most actually is when you go into the land acquisition space, obviously you have to have your relationships with the builders that you have and being able to put a price together. And this goes in general when I talk about the general public when they try to find like this house and land.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
By looking on the internet, what I find the vast difference is the internet price versus what the actual reality price will be at the end.
Completely different.
And there's a huge difference
Massive difference.
in that. So you could see on the internet that there's a certain price, 500,000, brand new house and land package, and then we will do the same assessment on something similar on the same area, and it's like actually going to be 560 or 570 or something like that. I think what's good to note now is the question is, why is there such that big difference in actual end price compared to what's been advertised?
Well, what's advertised basically is just the base house price. They don't take into account site costs, slope, you know, if they come into account to rock. Usually they don't include fencing, landscaping, anything like that. So there is quite a lot of factors that they just don't include online. They might say, you know, in the ad fixed price or this, but there's a disclaimer which will, you know, say does not include site costs.
Why do you think they do that? Because that actually genuinely actually annoys me.
I think it's
when I see these prices, because we know what's going on, but it's almost fooling people.
It's cruel because they actually are fooling people that aren't educated, and people fall for these prices, sign contracts, and then after contracts they get variation after variation, 20k, 30k, and it all, you know, obviously adds up. But we obviously know this because we do our own research, we do our due diligence, and that's the whole purpose of having our research team. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize that it's just clickbait. It's clickbait pricing, and it's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what's unfortunate is, tell me if you agree or not. What's unfortunate is because of those experiences, it does shed a bit of a bad light on trying to buy land and then build. Because there's so many of those stories that are like, well, it was this, and then all of a sudden there was extra that I had to give. I know a lot of friends that went through that had to pay an extra $100,000 just to get their house started. But do you agree that now it does give a little bit of a stigma towards buying brand new? People get a little bit afraid.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
I definitely do see that. I think that's the more reason why we are getting a lot more members coming to us, because they don't understand that they're not educated, and, you know, they don't want to go through these situations that their friends and family have gone through. So
yeah, so that's the unfortunate thing for me when it comes down to it. The funny thing though is when I think about let's say you're a home buyer and you're moving in for the first time, right? The typical scenario is, let's say they buy land and they want to build their dream home.
Yep.
Okay. So now they're willing to pay whatever amount to build this home, right? Yet, do you think there's a difference in someone trying to build their home for themselves and overspending on the build because they want this, they want extra this.
Yeah.
But then when they invest, there's still that stigma that it's brand new, off the plan. But if they were going to build on their own, it's all exciting.
It's all about emotional attachment. When it's your own house and you're living in it, you're very emotionally connected to it, and you want the higher, massive ceilings. You want all these extra fancy fixtures. But when it comes to investing, the ducted aircon, it can cost you 25K extra. That's not going to make a massive difference in the rental return that you're getting back. So you're paying, all this extra money for all these fancy fixtures, and you could spend 30K more, but it might only make an extra $20 a week in your rent. So I think, definitely a lot of people are getting mixed up with their emotions instead of actually looking at the figures when it comes to investing. Obviously, I don't get me wrong, I do love always making sure we have beautiful facades for all our properties. I don't like just your basic standard, brick kind of thing. I don't like that. So I always make sure, our properties are very, decent looking, but not over the top where it's going to blow out the budget, it's going to blow out the valuations, and the comparables are just not going to be there.
Yeah, but I say that story because it's so funny, human psychology. And to me, property is all about psychology. Whether you're a buyer, whether you're a first-home buyer, whether you're a renter, it doesn't matter. Whether you think you're an investor, the game to me is about how you think. And it's funny that someone who's going to build their own home and go over budget, and then when it's finally complete, justify the reasons why and why it's so good, that they'll say things like, oh, look, it's got 2 living areas. Oh, it's this facing. It's got a nice backyard. Yet they've overspent. But then when it comes down to investment, they try to analyze every single detail for them not to do it. Okay, so I always say this when investing. You only need one reason not to invest. Yet people find 5 up to 10 reasons not to invest. They'll have an opportunity in front of them. Everything fits. It's in their budget. They can afford it. It's in their borrowing capacity. Yet they'll come back and go, oh, but it's got this. It's, it's like, it's only 2.4 ceiling height. Oh, I don't like the way it faces, blah, 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 blah. All of that stuff. They give you so many reasons not to invest. Yet if they spend an extra $200,000 on their own home, it's such a good decision. Do you know what I mean? To me, this is psychology. Like, and that's what fascinates me about this whole house and land. Because when people buy their own home and they find a piece of land and they build, they don't actually call it house and land package or anything like that. They always just call it, hey, I've bought a piece of land and I'm going to build my own home. Yet when it comes to investment, the word house and land package, it's exactly the same as what they're doing. Yet they don't call it that way. That's what I find really fascinating.
Definitely psychology and emotions.
It's emotional. Yeah. So, anyway, so cool. So that's a little bit about, I guess, your role, what you were doing here, your experiences. Now, I'm curious to know, when you first started in land acquisition, 8 years ago, has there been a difference from then to now?
Absolutely.
What's the difference?
Difference is stock.
Back then there was more?
Back then there was a lot more opportunity, I guess, off market and on market for us to, I guess, package. Nowadays, land is just going out the door. Something might be put on the market, within 24 hours it's sold. So it is getting very, very tough to, find land, and decent land as well. We like to make sure that, the land isn't over 2 meters of slope. It's not irregular.
Okay, stop there for a second. Let's explain to our viewers here. When we say slope, and you said, we make sure it's not over 2 meters of slope. Why is that important?
It definitely adds a massive chunk to the build price.
Let's let people know how much would 2 meters of slope add to a build that they don't know about yet, because they're gonna, a lot of people, not even just our members, a lot of people try to do it themselves. So they might find a piece of land. They haven't checked the engineering or the surveying or anything like that. And they might go find a builder that might build it. Yet they don't know this thing called slope, which you just said. And you just said, we make sure we don't have 2 meters of a slope. Why and what cost would it be if it had 2 meters of slope?
Well, more slope means either more cut and fill. It means a different floor plan. So you're going to have a split floor plan. Okay,
let's just stop there for a sec. Sorry. The reason I'm just stopping you is just so we can let it understand those. Yeah. So when you say slope, are you talking about the land actually slopes down?
Like it either slopes down or slopes sideways. It can either or, basically.
Or it can be a mixture of both.
Mixture of both, exactly.
So it's not flat, it's just sloping.
It could slope literally down and sideways at the same time.
Yeah. So if that scenario happens, the process now is to either try to level it, correct?
Level it, yes.
By either filling it or cutting it.
Yeah, so cutting and filling it. Or they can have an elevated floor plan. So they can have, obviously, there might be the garage and then stairs up and then flat and then stairs up, or off to the side.
Like a split
level house design, which can, either or can add up to, minimum 40, 50K.
Okay, did you guys hear that? Minimum 40 to 50,000. That is not included in the price. And generally, when do you actually see this slope is, I guess, when the builder has to go see the site. Would that be correct?
Definitely that, or you need engineering plans from the surveyor. And a lot of the time, land contracts don't actually include these plans. A lot of real estate agents might not even include them or even ask them from the developer. But these are pretty much the most important plans you need when purchasing a house. Or land.
Do you guys get that? In Sarah's point of view, it's pretty much the most important plans you need if you were going to buy land and try to build something. The engineering report and a lot of, like you said,
engineering and also the plan
and the survey.
The plan of subdivision, because this shows, if you need, if there's any easements as well, and where the sewer lines are, everything like that. Because when it comes to sewer lines as well, anything to do with stormwater, you may need encasing as well, and that can also add an extra 20K to the price. So all of these, obviously add up and can add at least 100K onto the price that you see on realestate.com.
And I do touch on these points when I do the webinars, Sarah, but obviously not to this detail. But I do say, site costs are probably the biggest expense that people don't know about, only until you get the report or you know how to read it or you give it to your builder or something like that.
I might actually touch on it as well. There are a lot of areas that people don't realize that there's actually rock. So when a builder hits rock, even just that itself can add an extra $20,000. I remember I came across a case once where we were building. This was back when I worked for a builder, and they came across a car underneath the land. They were digging down. They came across an old car underneath.
There was a car under
there. There was a car, an old car. That's unheard of, right? So, you never know what you're going to.
How much did it cost to remove the car?
Oh, I didn't. I was too shocked, I think, to even ask. But a car, and then there's also more, other things. For example, asbestos. Asbestos in the soil. So that's why I've come across blocks of land. I'm like, oh God, this is a great, opportunity where it's located, everything, but then found out that part of it was contaminated by asbestos. And some people don't know that either.
I mean, I do remember times when we've been looking at land and finding areas that we think to invest, and then you're able to get the reports and the surveying. it passes all the criteria of our investment. You know, low vacancies, high owner occupied areas, and then you get the land, and we've got an initial price that we want to hit to get the value, and then all of a sudden you say to me, John, it's got 2 meter of slope, and then you've added an extra 50,000, and then it's just like, we won't do it, even though it ticked like 8 out of the 10 boxes of investment.
Yeah.
And it's the biggest thing to me. Like, I'm like, this is such a shame. Why we can't get these people in here because of slope. Yet, you know, I do know a lot of people that would just go, because on the face value, it looks good. But then when you really look into it, the whole site has 2 meters of slope.
But not even that as well. It can come down to if it's in a flood zone, if it's in a bushfire zone. If you've got a high BAL rating, you know, there's going to be builders.
Okay, let's tell them, what is BAL rating?
A BAL rating is the bushfire level, basically. So anything over, or I would say anything from 29 above, I don't think I would touch for our clients. But yeah, there's a lot of builders that won't even build sites from 29 and above. So you've got to be careful there as well. And also, if you are building in a high BAL area, it means the builds are going to be more expensive. They need to account for, you know, thicker glass, you know, a whole heap of, you know, insulation, just heap of different, you know, fixtures that you wouldn't even think of that can, you know, add a massive, you know, bill on top of the build price. And same for flood as well. If you're in a flood zone, you've got to have only a certain amount of living on the bottom and the rest upstairs. And those type of fixtures as well, and footings and that type of design will add in a massive amount to your build price as well.
Yeah, so it's such a shame when we find those areas and then there's just too much slope, which a lot of people, I think, really need to actually learn about. You know, if they're gonna try to buy land. Can I ask you this, a little bit of off this whole kind of land thing? In your time, the last 8 years, what is the best deal you've done?
Best deal I've done is probably
where you made someone the most amount of money.
Yep.
Do you know?
Lennox Head.
Okay, Lennox Head. Where's that?
Lennox Head is Northern Rivers region.
New South Wales?
Yeah.
Yes.
So just out of Byron Bay. So I actually sold about quite a few blocks there, and they were duplex blocks. Those blocks were, so this is big pricing now though.
And what year was this?
This was a year ago.
Okay.
So this was year and a half ago.
Year and a half ago.
So I got a bubble in my throat. These blocks of land were around 850,000 for the land only.
Yep.
And then a duplex built on top of that was about, I think, another 800K.
Were you part of the building side as well, putting it together?
I put together the package, yes.
Yep.
So I worked with the agent and the builder and put the packages together for our investors.
Yeah.
And so those had about 500,000 to 600,000 equity in them once built.
Okay, so what was the purchase price?
Purchase price was, so land was about 820.
Yep.
Build was about 800.
Yep.
1.6.
1.6.
Yep. And then the two different, obviously, duplexes being sold, and in that location as well. It was about 500,000 to 600,000 equity, actually a bit more as well. Now would be a lot more. Even the land, so land there is now same size, is now selling in the millions.
Right.
It's been a year and a bit, not even that.
Interesting. Yep. Lennox Head. New South Wales, Byron Bay. Regional. Regional. Are you a regional fan?
I am, yes.
Finding land in regional. Is it easier to find? Oh, I don't know if it's easier.
It's more expensive, I can tell you that.
Regional? New South Wales than Sydney?
Ooh. It's getting up there.
It's getting up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. In your professional opinion, having done so much land acquisition in the last nearly 10 years, do you believe land is going to get any cheaper in the next 2 or 3 years? Because the reason I ask is because people are waiting for properties to get cheaper. I know a lot of people are. They're waiting for this so-called crash or some sort of, little bit, the market going down, whatever. But do you think land will get cheaper?
I think it might slow down a bit, but when people talk about the market, every different location is a different market. And so different locations are going to skyrocket. Some are going to go down. Some are going to, stay level. Every single location has a different market. When it's funny when people ask me, "Oh, how's the market going?" I say, "Okay, which area?" Because the market isn't just one area. It's so many different locations. And for example, Lennox, that just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And then there's other locations which actually are going down. Others are staying flat. So definitely in my opinion, it's all got to do with the type of locations. I do see a lot of coastal going up and continue to going up.
Like New South Wales coastal?
New South Wales coastal, yes.
Yeah.
All the way from South Coast.
Yes, like Shoalhaven, Nowra. Yeah.
All the way up to, Tweed.
Past Byron Bay.
Yeah, all the way up.
That whole eastern coast, all the way up New South Wales.
All the way up coastal is just going up. Yep, in price.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
You see that for the foreseeable future too?
I do, but I think the last year has gone up exponentially. Is that how you say it?
Yeah. Exponentially.
Exponentially.
Yeah.
Definitely. I see that. I see the whole, coastal has just gone skyrocketed basically. I'm hoping that it settles down a bit. Just in terms
you mean in
of,
like buyer demand?
In buyer demand and affordability, because if it's going to keep going up, our purchasers aren't going to be able to afford it.
Well, you want to really talk about this whole affordability discussion?
We'll be here all night.
Yeah.
All night.
Yeah, because seriously, people have to decide. This is just my opinion. People really have to decide which side of the fence they want to sit on. Morally. Right? Morally. Because I see a lot of comments on social media about housing. And a lot of these comments is, it's so unaffordable. Like governments have to do something. Like people are becoming, the rent's going up. And you've got a lot of people actually complaining that the property prices are going up. Okay? To me, morally, if you believe that property prices shouldn't go up and you want more Australians to get a home, okay, which now comes to a point where people say, stop migration because new immigrants are now taking the housing, and there's all these comments out there.
Yep.
So you either sit on the line where you say to yourself, I want affordable housing, and I believe that all Australians should be able to buy a home, which means the prices shouldn't go up. Now,
but how are you going to make money from that then?
But see, this is what I'm saying. People who believe that morally and emotionally want that. Maybe because they're in that situation themselves.
Yeah.
However, here's my question to all these people who have this sort of mentality. If you owned a home already, would you still think the same? Would you still want property prices to slow down? Do you want property prices to become affordable like you're saying now? So you have to decide which line of the fence you sit. You can't be... So if you have no properties, you either have to pick, I want to get a property, or I don't want to get a property to make it cheaper or to make it affordable for people. And this is fundamentally, I believe, the issue about people who are negative about property is they morally they haven't decided which side of the fence they're at. They want affordable, yet once they buy the affordable place, they also want it to double.
Yeah, exactly. I think the people that are very negative in property are the ones that, I guess, are skeptical on property, and also, I guess, don't know how to maybe save for property.
Unless they own a property. Like if you told someone, okay, yep, here's a property. And when people are only skeptical is because they don't have a property.
Exactly.
You know, so, you know, I say this to a lot of young people, a lot of people I speak to. Don't complain about property and property prices being expensive, because you'll be complaining for the next 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so you'll be complaining for the next 20 years. You just have to decide how you're going to actually play this whole game, whether you're going to sit on this side of the fence or sit on this side of the fence. And, you know, from even your experience, you know, the last 10 years of finding land. When you look at just land, now let's not even talk about houses, let's talk about land where people can buy just the land. So obviously that's cheaper, just buying the land.
Yep.
How high has it grown since 10 years from now to now?
Oh, stupid amount.
You see? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the land itself.
Even in the last, a year, I think I sold a property, a piece of land in Port Macquarie. 600 square metre blocks are big enough for a duplex. Sold for $225. It's now worth about $500,000 in a year.
Yeah.
Like that's just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
It's unheard of.
Yeah.
Well, unheard of back then.
Yeah.
Now it's just the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we could go on about affordability.
Oh,
honestly,
could, yeah.
like, you know, I just saw the new scheme that in the budget that just came out about, you know, extra 50,000 people getting a 5% scheme. Did you hear about that?
I don't know about that.
So, what they're saying is,
Do we want to talk about it if I don't know about it?
no, that's okay.
Okay.
I'll tell you. No, I'll tell you. A lot of
Okay.
people don't know.
Okay.
Because it just got announced.
Yep.
That
Okay, yes, John, I did hear about it.
50,000. So if you're a first home buyer, Dean's a first home buyer. You're able to go into a property with 5% deposit.
Okay. But there's people these days that can do that.
It's
already
called like the
and not have
5%
to be.
scheme.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
5% scheme where you can get the 95% loan, or there's some things around that, but the whole purpose of it is you get in at a low cost, which is 5%.
Yeah.
I think the rules though is you have to build brand new.
Yep.
Okay. So you get in at 5%, you build, but the question really is
that 5% on the land or 5%?
Well, it should 5% total price.
So land and build combined. So
and then you can get in at 5%.
Yeah, okay.
Yet, in your experience, which land developer allows? Well, is there many that allow only 5%?
In my experience, out of, I'd probably say 4% out of 100.
Yeah, very little, right?
Very little.
Normally you need 10%, and then you need 5% of the build. So there's already over 5%.
Yeah, exactly.
So the whole scheme is trying to rely on it. The only way they can get in now is if they can get a unit or a townhouse at 5% deposit. Yeah. So to me, that's what the government is doing for affordability. Just trying to allow people to enter at these at a lower cost. Yeah.
But even in today's market, finding a unit and a townhouse at an affordable price is quite tricky, especially in decent areas.
Yeah, well, people just now...
For the sake of it.
Yeah.
Buying because they want a piece of property. Yeah, which I guess is, completely understandable.
Yeah.
So.
Which is why I think people have to rethink the way they buy property. Like, it doesn't mean now you try to find a property in your affordability and have to go and live there. They should just rethink it.
Yeah.
if they want home ownership to me, this is my opinion, home ownership doesn't mean that you live in it.
No, definitely not.
Right?
No.
But a lot of people think that's what home ownership is. So they consider themselves, they don't own a home unless they live in it, which limits their ability to think outside the box and think outside their normal way of thinking. Just by the word home ownership.
Well, especially living in Sydney as well. Sydney prices are just, ridiculously high. And if people want to own a house in Sydney, for example, what a Tarman medium house price is like, 2 mil something now?
More than that,
3 mil. Being a homeowner doesn't mean you have to, definitely, you don't have to live in it. You know, I see myself always probably going to be renting in Sydney because the price is too high. If I want to spend that money on buying a house in Sydney, that's like 3 or 4 deposits on 4 different investment properties, So it's I guess everyone's going to have their different mindsets. Some people like to have, that one house that they live in, they own and they pay off for the rest of their life kind of thing. And as long as they get rid of that debt, and that's, their homeowner. But some people see it as buying a heap of, investment properties and just living in a rental property. That's still home ownership.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't know if you know this, Sarah, that since 1970, people who are aged 35 and under, back in 1970, I think 70% of those people aged in that 35 already owned a home. Today,
because land was like $5,000.
Well, but you have to also remember their wages.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know, I understand. Yeah.
But today, home ownership for a 35-year-old is like under 40%. So it's just a really big decline in people owning a home. So that statistic tells me is what you just said, which is more people have to realize as well that home ownership doesn't necessarily mean you live there. You just have to find a different way to own a home, to own your own home.
Yep.
Okay. So the important thing is the property market doesn't wait for people. I don't believe so. The saying goes, the best time to invest was yesterday. The next best time is now.
Yep.
Because if people can just think that whatever I have today, what can I do with it? Whether it's Melbourne or whatever it is, and then see that as home ownership and do what you do, which is rent, and like you said, purchase in multiple locations. Then one day, 10 years from now, would you say you could potentially sell all your properties and then buy the home you want?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You'd probably have more of a chance doing that and living in the suburb you want than trying to scrounge around a 10 or 20% deposit, which is going to be like, in our time, and if it's a $3 million property, $2 million, you're trying to find $200,000, $300,000, and then and then go on such a large mortgage, and then trying to pay it off. So,
yep. Well, as they say as well, every 10 years, the value doubles.
Not everywhere.
Not everywhere?
No.
Not everywhere.
Not everywhere.
But if you diversify,
yeah,
and you buy in different locations, different states,
yeah,
4 out of 6 may double.
Yes.
So you can buy 2 of those houses that you really want to live in. One for your parents and one for
I look at it this way. But you're right.
Yeah.
Do you have a calculator there?
Got my brain.
You have a laptop.
I got my phone.
Yeah, do your phone.
Yeah.
I say this to people who are investors. And I'm saying this to Jacob, Dean, and Luke. These 3 guys here. When you look at investing, so many people focus and expect their 1 or 2 properties to do a certain thing, which is obviously grow in value. Everyone expects that. The way to look at portfolios is you look at your total value, right? Total value, not one property, not two. Let's say you're able to get 4 properties at 600,000 each. What's 600,000 times 4? 2.4 million?
Yeah. We don't need a calculator. We'll just look.
Right? 2.4 million. So let's say in 5 or 6 years from now, those 4 properties, times that by 3%.
Can you tell us?
Times 0.03. What's that?
I came up with 72,000.
Yeah,
That's right. That's great.
72,000. 2.4 mil at 3%. 72, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I look at that, when you know how you said property doubles in 10 years, that means it's 7%. I just used 3%. Okay. That means if you can build that portfolio up to 2.4 million, your whole property only needs to, your property entire portfolio only needs to go up 3%. That means one of your properties is doing nothing. Maybe 2 of your properties doing nothing. It hasn't grown. Imagine that. And then you guys might think, oh my God, I just did shit. I just bought these duds. They might be doing nothing. But then your third property is like 3%, which is also very small. And then your other property is 3%, also very small. Yet your entire portfolio, guess what? It grew 72,000. That still means you can take some sort of equity out. Mm-hmm. At the worst case scenario, 3%. Right? So you don't expect your one, you want it to happen, but no one has a crystal ball. We do our best to try to give you that 8 out of 10 where you can get equity quickly. But, you know, not everyone, you don't get it right all the time. You can't expect every single one of your properties, you know, to do this in a very short period of time.
But 3% is quite low for the areas that we focus on.
It's low, yes.
Focus on areas a lot higher than 3%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you think about that, 3%, if your entire portfolio only goes 3% every year, in 2 years' time, 140,000.
That's like another 2 deposits potentially on, you know, 2 different investments.
Yeah, 140,000 at 3%. Do you want to take that chance? That's what I said to people. Do you want to take that chance? You know, you should take that chance. Otherwise, if you do nothing, then you're growing at 0. Yeah. Actually, you might be growing backwards because you can't save.
That's it.
Do you have any questions for me before we go?
Do I have any questions for you? What's the best opportunity you have come across in your career in property and research?
Oh, in Investmentor or?
Yeah, Investmentor. Actually, let's go 2 different ones. Investmentor and your whole life.
The best one in life was Northern Beaches.
Okay.
Yeah.
What? Tell us a little bit more about that. Elaborate, please.
Northern Beaches house, DY.
Is this your own house?
No. No. But this was a while ago. Maybe 9 years ago. I wasn't fully into the property game yet. But without doing any sort of renovations or anything, it was just bought at the right price. It was bought at 9 years ago, $480. But the next year, it was nearly $1 million.
Jesus.
And that was simply because of the location. It had nothing to do with, it was just the location itself. If you're talking about Investmentor, I think the best deal we have done and found was, I have to think now.
Too many.
There's a lot.
Fragile.
Yeah, I think the one in Sydney, Menangle Park.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about those figures.
So that was 7. It's still under construction right now, but the price I got it was $770.
So house and land package.
House and
basically.
land.
Yep.
Total price $770. The land is 420 square meters. Double story 4-bedroom home for $720. on the valuation, it was 890 on the val. Once on completion, it's going to be over $1 million. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Who
So
would have thought in Menangle Park?
I did.
Well, yeah, of course you did, but like years
Actually,
ago.
at that time,
Years ago?
no, at that time when I was, it was such a funny thing. Like, we had these deals in Menangle Park. Not many of our members bought. In fact, only one or two. Maybe at the time, no one probably believed it or not, but I thought at that time it was one of our best deals.
How long ago was this?
When was that? Start of 2021.
Okay. So I'm thinking back to like maybe 4 years ago, thinking of like, you know, buying out there, you know, it was...
Oh, yeah.
I would have thought it's not, you know, a sought after area, stuff like that. Same with, you know, Leppington Austral. Now land prices there are like 700, 800 for a piece of land.
Yeah. But we also have to remember that we just went through the biggest boom in the last 32 years from 2020 to now. So I don't expect property to do what it did in the last year and a half. I think that is also a expectation that a lot of investors have to accept. But you still have to buy right, buy with the fundamentals, but don't expect what it did. I mean, you try your best to get it, but I think you have to set the expectation a little bit lower.
Yep. Maybe we need another wave of COVID to let it happen again.
Oh, well. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay,
I think
we're wrapping
done.
up.
They're telling us that they're giving us this sign.
We want to keep talking
That
about it. There's
means-
so much to talk about.
They're just saying, cut it.
Next time.
They're cutting us off.
They're just cutting us off.
Had too much to drink.
All right. Anyway, Sarah, how do you
Beautiful.
feel now on your first podcast?
I feel
'Cause-
pumped. I could
See?
keep going. to be
Exactly.
honest, but
It's not as bad
the
as you
boys are
think.
cutting us off.
I know it's not as bad
Like
as
they
you
did
think.
on
Would you
Friday
come?
night.
Would you come
Fuck.
again?
Kidding. What?
Would you come again
would.
and join us?
Yes,
I think
I will
next
next
time we'll
time.
have like another 3 or 4 people. It's good
Yeah, a
to
couple more. Just
Just
get
to
some
get the-
others' opinions.
get the vibe going
Yeah.
with 3 or 4 people. But look, I'm glad you enjoyed it
I
because
did,
then you
definitely.
can do a lot more of these and a lot more interaction and a lot more information and education to give to our
Yeah, definitely.
members.
Yep. A lot more to give.
Because that's good info. That's only a small snippet, by the way, about slope and about what to look for on land. That's very small, so you can still get a lot more deep. And I'm sure a lot of these young guys would also want to ask a lot of different
Yeah,
questions too.
definitely.
So anyway, thanks for the first podcast.
No worries.
Many
Thanks
more to
for
come.
having me.
And I really enjoyed that as well. Getting to
glad.
also to know a little bit about your
Past
history.
Life. Past life.
Yeah. Cool.
Beautiful.
All right.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks, guys. See you again.